So, street activism is a powerful tool for social and political change, acting as a visible, direct and often emotional method to influence public opinion and policy. Today we are privileged to listen to some of Sydney's most prominent and finest street activists. Our panellists for today are, give them a round of applause and then I'll announce them. Because I've got to tell you, these guys are, I'm going to say it, fucking awesome. So our panellists are Mark Berriman, Susan Sorensen, Molly Freemore, Sooraj Prakesh, and Pawel. Oh my goodness, Pawel. I know I practiced Zawislak. Did I get it? Close enough. Okay. So please join me in giving them a huge welcome.
Start the timer. There we go. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you all for joining us for the Street Activism panel. I'd also like to give a huge thanks to Kai Macbeth and Shane White for providing me the opportunity to host this panel today. We hope that this will be an interesting, informative, and empowering session about the world of street outreach. Many of you here will likely have heard of or even participated in some form of activism and advocacy during your lives. They are core components of many social justice movements throughout history, including the abolition of slavery, the fight for basic human rights, civil rights, women's rights, and of course, the fight for the rights of non-human animals. We certainly would not have progressed this far without powerful and inspiring activists before us who put everything on the line to build a better and more just world for all. Advocacy is the act of persuading or arguing in support of a specific cause, policy, idea, set of values, or beliefs. In this case, advocacy performed through engaging in conversation with members of the public becomes what we call street activism. The goal here is to educate and spread awareness, prompting a change in the mindset of people and empowering them to take an ethical stance against all animal exploitation, better known as veganism. We'll all be addressing a series of questions that cover some of the main aspects of street outreach, and in the last 15 minutes or so, we'll open the floor up for questions from you guys. So I'll just start off with question number one. Given that a lot of people are shy when it comes to activism, what advice or assistance can you provide to make it easier for them? We'll kick it off with Mark.
Are we working? Is that working? Oh, great. Okay, well, I got into this I was first joined Animal Liberation in Canberra, and I was asked to speak. And I thought, if I don't speak, the animals will let down, and that's what motivated me. So I had a bit of preparation, nervous as all get out, and suddenly that was it. I spoke. And although I was nervous, the feeling later was that I'd actually really achieved something because I put my ego or fears out of the way and spoke up for the animals. And I think that's basically it. It's a bit like Ed Winters, the English activist, that says, if you see someone beating a dog with a stick, what do? You sort of ignore it and go away. So I don't approve of that, but he's sticking with the stick, nothing happens. If you try to stop him and say, yeah, that's wrong, then you've achieved something. Yeah, that's the equivalent, really, because that's what you're effectively doing. Now, for people that are shy, I would say, there's a few things you can do. Look in the mirror and see yourself speaking. See yourself as confident, even speaking to yourself as if, because there's nothing to be ashamed of, apart from the embarrassment of being on your own, but that's to do with you. Look in the mirror and just see how your facial expressions are and try to improve and just through that. And then when you get to, say, a street activism situation, such as we have in Cubes of Truth and so forth, or the animals' funerals we have in Pitt Street, there's perhaps just hang around, see what people are doing, and even move in for a few minutes or to partner up with someone that's had experience and be with them. They can virtually hold your hand, not literally, but be there and show that you can do it for a bit. And after a while, it just becomes second nature, and you lose that timidity. You can also wear a mask if you want to. It doesn't even mean anonymous, but that probably ironically makes you stand out more. But I think people in general do not recognise individuals. They see individual face. It's very much any other individual face. It's really coming to terms with your ego more than your fear. That's what I learnt, and that's what motivated me. Have I spoken long enough on that?
No, yeah, you can keep going if you
want.
Right,
okay. So if you're feeling that you want to be involved, go down. We have the animal funeral every second week in Pitt Street Mall from about, it's traditionally from 2 to 5, but sometimes 1 to 5. Just pop down there, have a look, hang around, see what's involved, and you might become, just do a little activism, stand there for a while, do anything. But it grows. It just becomes easier and easier. That's what I found. Because going back to the speaking, after I did that little 5-minute speak, you couldn't shut me up. As you can see manifestly now, they'll never get this microphone, I can assure you. I used to speak up to universities. I was up there for 45 minutes talking about stuff, pushing Peter Singer and anti-vivisection and stuff like that. Nowadays, I've forgotten about the stand. And I think the important thing is that the most valuable thing I found was that it's a bit like acting. You have a mask in front of you. You speak through the mask, not you as an individual, but the mask. The mask is your persona of knowledge. And I tried to do that once when I didn't believe in the subject. It was impossible. I couldn't be a salesman. I used to write a magazine, and edit a magazine, and go out to the public in situations whereby people would all be talking, and they were just like these parrots, these sort of puppets, spruiking their product. I was the real deal. I was presenting a magazine that was generally interested in natural health and vegetarianism and veganism. And I found it very uncomfortable because I felt like three-dimensional amongst like two-dimensional things. I mean, that's a cruel thing to say, but that's what it felt like. But when I tried to do that on a two-dimensional subject, I just couldn't do it because there's no substance to what I was doing. But that's the bottom line. You know your subject, know it well, get educated, and have that mask say, that's not me, I can just hide behind that, that's doing the work for me. It knows the subject. Practice in front of the mirror again. Practice in front of your friends or someone that you trust and you don't feel embarrassed about, and then you can get on. And so that's my advice.
Thank you, Mark. Those were really good points around, I think, particularly just reminding yourself about why you became vegan in the first place, what truly drives you, why you care, and using that as motivation to get out there and speak up. And also, of course, shadowing people that are more experienced, giving yourself a bit more time, making yourself more comfortable. They're all really worthwhile and valuable advice. What are your thoughts, Pawel?
I think public speaking, public confrontation, street outreach doesn't have to be as confronting or aggressive as a lot of people try to paint it. It's basically the way we make it. Even the most confronting and the most outrageous message, which animal rights obviously is, can be delivered in the most kind and welcoming way. It's the way we make it.
Yeah, thank you. I think that's really, really, really good advice. What do you think, Susan?
Thank you. Well, for me, I think it's a little bit of a different perspective, and I think that's why it's good that all of us have a time just to say something on this topic. Attitude. I think that's a really big thing. We have to have the attitude that we are all imperfect. When you are imperfect, you don't have to strive and have huge expectations of yourself. You're out there, you're doing something, and that's all that matters. We're there for the animals. That's what you can push you forward. And keeping it simple. A lot of the times I used to think, they've got to ask all these questions I'm not going to know the answers to, but we keep it as simple as possible. And simplicity is the secret. We are on the right side of history. That is a fact. We are standing against exploiting animals to death. They are not, and we need to fight for people to know that this is what we need to be doing. And I think also you need to become informed, but you don't need to be super informed and know everything about everything. So what I would suggest is to become informed, join the various parties like Animal Justice Party, Animal Liberation, Animal Free Science Advocacy. They all have webinars where you can learn a lot of the information. And then do some of the training that is offered from We the Free. They actually specifically teach us different strategies we can use for street outreach. Also follow Vegan Action Global. They have some fantastic videos showing ordinary people doing extraordinary things. And when you see other people doing that, you realise, I can do that as well. You see someone else doing something, you then know that it's not that hard. Also follow savepoppy.com. It is the most fantastic place you can go to find everything you need about activism, about... it's actually been put up by Andy Faulkner number of years ago. He keeps it going. It's not something that people all know about, but if you have a look at that, safepoppy.com, it's got everything you need to know. It's got everything like... I'll stop there because otherwise I'll go too long. The other thing too, follow Farm Transparency Project if you can watch that. I watch them whenever I can. I cry every week, but that's what gives me the drive to go forward week on week. And action, try all forms of action, activism, and find the one that really suits you. And use those trolls. No, I'm spitting now, sorry. Use those trolls, hone your skills on those trolls. Otherwise, they're for nothing. So I actually do follow different activists. I might make a really positive comment about something that the activist has said, and then I just wait for the trolls, and then I will use my time to be as cool and calm and professional. They will call me names, but I will never call them names back because they might not be taking it on board. But there are other people watching, and I'm going to use that as a tool for educating them about what they need to know about animals and what's happening to them. Yeah.
Powerful. Powerfully put, Susan. I think that emotional drive and connection is really important. What do you think, Molly?
Yeah, so I would like to...
Yes, please.
Hello, everyone. Thank you all for being part of today's discussion. I would say if someone is shy, the easiest and the most effective way of doing activism is posting contents on social media. We live in a world where the average person spends about 3 to 5 hours every single day on social media. Think about that. 3 to 5 hours scrolling, watching, liking, sharing, commenting. Platforms like Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, Facebook are not just entertainment apps anymore. They are where people learn, connect, and form opinions. Imagine we are standing outside on a busy road in front of a crowd, holding a sign, "Dairy is scary." Well, no one is looking up because they are so engrossed in watching reels. How can we make them see us, see the animals? I would say using the same platform they are using, speaking the language they understand. If we want to create change, we must meet people where they already are. When people spend hours a day on their phone, ignoring that space means ignoring the most powerful communication tool of our generation. And the beauty of social media is you do not need millions of dollars. You do not need a stage. You do not have to show your face if you're not willing to. You need a phone, internet access, and the courage to post. And everyone doesn't have to be a content creator. Just posting, resharing messages, reposting other contents, it can create an immense impact. Because in today's world, the road is not just the street outside, the road is the feed. And millions are walking down it every second. If someone is shy, use the most powerful tool you have, social media. Thank you.
Thank you, Molly. Wonderfully put. And yeah, you just heard about all the different opportunities and how easy it is to just step out, join the community, be active, and get involved. And it's also important to mention, as speakers have said earlier today in the Guarding the Flame panels and the United for Change panels, just play to your personal strengths. It's often helpful to go out of your comfort zone and develop new skills, but it's completely understandable to contribute in other ways. While some of us might be talking on the street, you can just come and help out with the tech setup, man the laptops, hold the signs, bring people in. Everybody is a valuable part of the team. And it's also important to know that there are lots of different settings with different demographics. You know, we can talk out in town hall as we do as part of We the Free on the streets with a wide range of people, or on university campuses, which is sort of like doing outreach on easy or normal difficulty. Lots of open-minded students that are willing to learn, and you won't necessarily come up with the same sort of resistance that you do out in other settings. So thank you for your input, everybody. We'll move on to question number 2. Why does street activism often turn into a debate? And can we make someone vegan by winning it? We'll start off with Molly. Please come up to the lectern.
Can I ask you all a question? How does it feel when you share everything you know? You explain how non-human animals spend their entire lives in suffering, confinement, fear, and pain, just so they can end up on someone's plate. What do we expect people to feel when they truly see the reality? Probably what we felt, right, when we first saw it. Tears, sleepless nights, a constant heaviness in the chest, that unbearable sense of helplessness knowing that somewhere, right now, someone desperately wants to live and we are not rescuing them. But sometimes the discussion turns into baseless arguments and debates. For example, plants feel pain. I'm a farmer. I take good care of animals. Good care. Until the day their legs are tied, their throat is cut, and their last breath is taken while someone watches. A life ended that was never truly theirs to begin with. Have we ever paused to ask why these arguments come up? I began my activism journey through street outreach with We the Free. We show a 3-minute video revealing standard practices in the agricultural industry and then engage viewers in conversation. And I have witnessed countless debates gone for hours. And when that happens, we often say, they got triggered. That's why they are giving these arguments. But perhaps that's not always the case. Maybe they haven't felt anything at all after watching the footage. And unfortunately, that can be normal. Their way of seeing the world may simply be very different. How do they interact with the world around them, with the animals around them? How many living beings have they truly noticed beyond humans? Well, I'm not just talking about chickens, cows, or pigs, but any other species with whom we share this planet. And what comes to their mind when we say chicken? Is it a roast chicken on a plate? A raw chicken wrapped in plastic on a supermarket shelf? Or a living, breathing, happy individual? Maybe they have never seen a chicken playing in the grass or basking in the sun. I know I hadn't for the first 40 years of my life. I didn't know a chicken could be happy or that a chicken could purr like a cat. I grew up seeing only sad chickens perched on metal crates waiting to be slaughtered. I never asked myself when they last ate. Well, that's the power of conditioning. Can we make that person vegan? I would say yes, we can. We should answer their argumentative questions, no doubt about it. But I would say, at the same time, expanding their worldview about other species. We need to show people what a chicken or a cow truly looks like when they are free, not reduced to flesh and numbers, but alive. Playing in the sanctuary, curious, unafraid, basking in the warmth of the sun, as if it belongs to them, because it does. If the connection is missing, words like slavery, animal rights, exploitation alone may not resonate. So I would say we need to find ways to help individuals discover that connection. We'll never give up, and we'll keep fighting for those who have done nothing wrong and still suffer the most horrific injustice on this planet. Thank you.
That was heartfelt and beautiful, Molly. Thank you. So, as Molly put, I think it's so important to understand what animals really go through, to constantly empathize with them, and to use that to drive our communication and our activism. And it often does turn into a debate because it's part of human nature, it's part of human psychology for the defensive barriers to go up, for the cognitive dissonance to kick in when you hear about things that you might be responsible for. And managing that confrontation and building rapport is so key. Rapport. And the goal, a lot of the goals of street activism, whether it's engaging in conversation with members of the public or standing in a cube, or doing all sorts of other demos and protests, is all about providing a powerful prompt for self-reflection and planting a very potent seed for change. In some people, that might snap instantly. For others, it might take a day, a week, a year. I know some partners who have been at it, played the long game, and their partners have gone vegan after 10, 15 years, so that's true dedication. And sometimes it does turn into debate. And part of that is just managing your emotions, trying to stay in the pocket, understanding the evidence, drawing on that. And one of the beautiful things of street activism is that you get to interact with people from all walks of life, different professions, different ethnicities, cultures, religions. It does not matter. And once we're able to build bridges with these people, regardless of whether it's gentle conversation or a slightly more flared and confrontational debate, it's all about planting that seed. I've talked to many of us here, I'm sure I've talked to, many farmers and many people who call to God, use their religion as an excuse to continue doing what they do. Some farmers are quite open-minded. I know many do genuinely struggle with the idea of caring for the animals and then having to send them off for slaughter. And that happens in dairy, that happens in all these industries. And some farmers are understandably just a product of their cultural conditioning and their environment. I remember, I think it was last year, talking to a farmer, brought his little girl along with him to activism, and she was completely just, you could see the conditioning. She was talking about how she would, had a pet sheep, but they would kill the rest of them. But she had one that was special, one that she protected. I remember gently asking her the question, what do you think about that? And she had nothing to say, just sort of gave a coy smile, and her dad was just next to her. And when I asked him about, what he does and to reflect on that, and talked about Farm Transitions Australia, which is an amazing organization that does work to, help farmers shift from animal ag to, if feasible, to a plant agricultural system. He just said, "Nah, mate, I'm too old for that. Can't change." It's some people might be resistant, others will be open-minded. So you just got to keep at it. I would now like to pass the mic on to Susan.
How I see it is when we are confronted with someone who comes along to us, whether they are a troll, whether they are somebody who just wants to learn a little bit more, as we speak, and they stop there because I believe that they are reacting to a mirror that's being held up to them. And they don't like the reflection that they're seeing because it's a reflection that they want to distance themselves from. And I think that's what we as activists, that's what we find time and time again. But for us as activists, when we are debating, because it does turn to a debate often, it can get heated and you can feel yourself. You are looking at a psychopath in front of you. There's something wrong with them, but you have to keep that at bay because you need to be able to engage with them and still build a type of a rapport to be able to get the message across. So I think that's what causes the debate to happen, but I personally don't think that we can actually turn someone vegan by being overly aggressive, calling them names. Like, I would like to slap their heads together, crack their heads together, but you can't show that, It's a matter of being as disciplined as you possibly can. Because, ultimately, we are there for the animals. I might feel good to vent out on them, but that's not going to be helping the animals. So that's what I always have in the back of my mind. Yeah.
Thank you, Susan. Mark, any thoughts on the matter?
Yes, I read an interesting book recently called Never Split the Difference by a hostage negotiator. And basically the bottom line of that was, and I encourage you to read it, is that when you go confrontational, black to black, someone's coming black and white, right? They're not black and white. They're reflecting within their resistance emotional things within them. So his idea was to ask in your late night DJ voice, sorry, you ask a question back, they might take a statement, so you turn that into a question. I can't think of an example off my head. But then they take it back on themselves and start to debate amongst their own mind about things, what's going on, and how do we get around this. And once you consistently open them up, and they make a point, and then you can make a counterpoint, you start to get something. And in that period when they're not threatened, they are open to planting seeds, and that's when you start to subtly plant your seeds. You can't do it head on. I mean, sure, we like to get up there and I see with some aggression there, but that's just a biffo, it just goes nowhere. But just by opening them up, they might say, like, animals are meant to be eaten. Say, why are animals meant to be eaten? Why are animals meant to be eaten? And then they'll go into something. So they've immediately gone from black and white, they're staged down to another level of conversation where the argument's on them. So it's a bit like a ping pong match or a tennis match. They're picking up the ball and suddenly it's in their court, they have to deal with it. And you get into this situation. In the process, the longer it goes on, the more rapport you get across and the more you can plant your seeds. One of my favourites is simply giving the biomass argument. If you imagine 100 beings on the face of the earth, 36 are human, 60% of 60 of them are mammals. Mammals raised for human consumption, only 4 are wildlife. So for every one wild mammal there's 15 that are actually 15 mammals raised for food by humans. And that's a takeaway point. So once you've softened down, you've got to that grey area where the aggression is down, then you plant your seed. And even a simple idea, it doesn't have to be complex, 1 or 2 ideas. But certainly it's that breaking down the barrier. Find a rapport first. The rapport is, I'm human, you're human. Where do we go from there?
Thank you, Mark. Would you like to add anything, Pawel?
I think a very simple method to actually avoid very heated debate, which often ends up being, just a very ugly verbal exchange, is to not assume that the opposition is wrong. We might be dead sad in our views, we know we're right, but just to give people chance to speak up, to present their views. That way we can actually learn something. We have to learn to listen. That's how we can grow and learn how to effectively convey the message.
Thank you, Pawel. Very well put.
Sorry, can I just say one thing really quickly?
Of course.
One thing that I learnt when I first began activism was the 100-point system. Has everyone heard of that? The fact that when you meet someone, they may be at 0, so they're not open to a lot. 0 being carnist, animal abuser, flesh eater. Oh, sorry, I won't go on. But they will be 0. And every single engagement that they have with someone who's speaking with them and who can reach their mind and reach their heart, they get another few points. So they might start at 0. After speaking with you, they'll get 3 points. They might go home and see an Animal Australia advertisement on television. Might be 6 points. And it just goes up that way. And then when they hit the 100-point mark, they're vegan. That's how I look at it. So I don't think about, keep a tally of how many people I think I have turned vegan. I don't even look at that. I think, well, was that a decent conversation? Is a bit what you said, they're human, I'm human. Yeah. And I think that just helps. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. On that note, something I often start off with when I talk to people is just, you've got to level with them when you're building rapport. It's just, because we're all a product of our environment. We are all subject to socio-cultural conditioning. All of us were raised, or most of us at least, consuming and using animal products. And we all start somewhere. You know, I was raised a vegetarian since birth. That was just out of virtue of my culture. My lovely mum is here today. And because that was a part of, you know, some cultures more than others. And as I grew up, I did not really know much about the dairy egg industries. And, you know, even going through med school and my background in science and public health and medicine, I did not know anything about this. Didn't even think about it until one day I decided to. It was gnawing at me at the back of my mind. I decided to look into it, and I knew I had to change from there. And we all start somewhere, and it's important just to understand we're all there at some point, and just empathize with them and be patient. It's really key. Moving on to question 3. As activists, how can we improve the effectiveness of our advocacy and communication? I'll kick this one off. A little bit of overlap with what we've talked about. As we've touched on, communication is very much an art form, and effective communication is essential to doing activism and advocating for change. It's important to, as we said, build rapport and build a bridge, persuade people through strong rhetoric. It's important to draw on a vast evidence base. We've heard today from amazing speakers and panelists about everything going on in the plant-based space, in ethical advocacy, and yeah, look, it's crucial to understand veganism as an ethical philosophy at its core, absolutely. But it's also important not to unnecessarily gatekeep the term. You know, it's important to understand that, yes, it is about ethics, but it also needs to be feasible. And there are so many aspects, so many moving parts around veganism that I think we as activists and advocates really need to know. And that's why being informed as a community is really important. This can be around improving our collective knowledge base around nutrition science, environmental health, public health, as well as economics, because the most important thing is it needs to be feasible. And I think the fight for animal rights is a bit unique in the sense that we've had many social justice movements throughout history, but animal rights is so deeply entrenched into virtually every culture on the planet, going back thousands of years, and it's really hard to uproot a lot of that conditioning. And so it's really important to just keep turning the pages, keep going at it, and working on multiple levels, pulling multiple levers. But obviously on the street, our goal is just to plant that seed and hopefully get people to change. Yeah, we have so much evidence already, and it's important to make the public understand that yes, it's about the ethics, but there are all these other factors that we should not be afraid to address. And it's tempting to jump straight to the ethics. It's powerful. It evokes an emotional response, and we don't need a PhD in any of these other spaces. But it's important to at least do a little bit of study, a little bit of reading, make ourselves more informed, and we have a better arsenal to address the questions that we get. Oops, gone to sleep. Give me a second. So understanding this and being more well-informed as a community really strengthens our credibility and as a community, as a movement, and ensures that we remain an ever-present force, armed with the truth on our side as we take strides towards one day achieving animal liberation. And one quick thing that we can go into later as well is it's really important to avoid and manage all the infighting that happens in our communities. It's important to maintain solidarity as we fight together to achieve this better world, not only for ourselves, but also for our non-human animal brethren. I'll pass the mic on to Pawel.
Obviously, it's a banal thing to say, but if there's no proper communication, there's no progress. We can't expect any positive outcome whatsoever. When it comes to animal rights message, it's obviously a tough nut to crack. So it really requires from us, advocates, to have the at least basic understanding of human psyche, how we respond to certain conduct. Simple example: if we address what happens to animals in a very angry manner, how can we expect people to respond to this? And what happens if we deliver this with kindness? Very different outcome. We also have to remember that looking down at people rarely works. We have to remember that once we were on the opposite side, right? We were making those stupid excuses. So always speak from the heart, speak your truth, speak from the personal perspective. It helps.
Thank you, Pawel. Would any of those like to add anything?
Yes, can I?
Go for it.
I think we need to give people a conversation that they will remember and that they will feel. And I think to do that, we need to be able to connect with them. And exactly what you said, I'm always striving to do that. I'm always trying to be better. I think every one of us are always trying to do better. But what I learned earlier, it was from Matt Stellino all those years ago, and he was a councillor who stood for 4 years in Campbelltown City Council. And he also was anonymous for the voiceless, and we worked a lot together. So he did a training session, and it was when you're speaking to people, really genuinely listen, be honest, be professional, and really show interest. Nod with them, meet them where they're at. And he uses the terms of feel, felt, and found. So when people are actually speaking, you nod, and then because you're showing you're actively and interested in them, and then you can say something along the lines, well, I understand how you feel, because I also felt that way in the early days, or whenever it was. And then, but after I did some research, after I did a bit of thinking, talking to other people, what I found is, so you're sort of showing them that you're acknowledging them, and you're showing, that's the other thing, showing solidarity with other people. All the whataboutisms that come by, you just show solidarity. Look, I understand, it's horrific. I cannot understand, we're not doing anything about trafficking of people or the homeless, but I can't do something about that right now. But I can do something tangible for the animals right now. And that's why I'm standing here. And they understand that, and then whatever happens, what we allow to happen for animals will eventually happen to humans. And they sort of, accept that as well. So that's where I come from with that. Yes.
Thank you, Susan. That's fine. Go ahead. Feel free. Would you guys like to add a little bit to it, or are you okay?
I'll make.
Yeah.
All right. Yes, I concur with all those things.
Gave you the
obviously.
option.
Yeah, the rapport is important, but you can also work on yourself. I mean, if you're working yourself to make yourself look like someone that knows their business. Funnily, I went to a course on communications, and it wasn't what you say or how you say it, it's simply body language. I'm sitting down here, I'm much more effective. I'm here and sort of engaging and all that sort of thing. So if you look in the mirror and make sure you're solid, you look solid, because people, unfortunately, and this is for the initial communication, if you look weak and not much strength there, people mark you down automatically. So you've already set yourself a handicap on communication. If you remember the Hitler in the Nuremberg rallies, if you actually listen to what he says, Deutschland, nothing. It's like, Germany's great, let's go on with it, and so on. And even the Nuremberg rallies themselves were, crowds and power is a different thing. The collective IQ drops considerably. Elias Canetti wrote a book about that. So know yourself stuff, practice in the mirror, work with others, you've got that status, and that gives you a look of strength. And then, as you say, use the Socratic method as well. You can start, when you're in a debate, once it goes back to the book I was talking about, Never Split the Difference, put the ball in their court, ask them a question. So, what do you think about this? Do you think animals feel pain? Someone's coming at you like this, do you think animals feel pain? Is pain important across the board? So you can lead gradually into other things, and I think that makes it a good communication, because the Socratic method just really brings them out, makes them think about, rather than black and white, into shades of grey, and then you've got a chance to, as you say, put in your points.
Thank you, Mark. Interesting example, but pertinent nonetheless. Molly, would you like to come up?
Yeah.
I believe one way we can improve the effectiveness of our advocacy is by recognizing the positive impact if someone says they are 50 to 60% consuming less animal products than before. I know our goal is to reduce and ultimately end the suffering of animals, but we must think in terms of collective impact, not individual perfection. 1,000 people being 100% vegan is meaningful, of course, but billions of people being at least 50% vegan would transform the world. When large number of people significantly reduce their consumption of animal products, the demand for factory farming decreases. That is why when someone tells me they are 90% vegan, I recognize the enormous positive shift they have already made. Though I don't praise them, but I don't discourage them as well. If we respond that progress with criticism, we discourage the very behavior we want to encourage. People thrive when their efforts are acknowledged. By supporting those who are making substantial changes, even if they are not perfect, we create a culture where more people feel comfortable participating. I know our mission is to abolish animal use, but to do that effectively, we must prioritize widespread progress over narrow perfection. That's what I think. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Molly. So, with that, we'll move on to question number 4, our final one. What drives you as an activist, and how do you maintain a balance and avoid burnout? Last but not least. To kick this off, can Susan please start?
You go. Thank you. Well, I think what drives people, we all have different drivers. I have a number of drivers. The number one, of course, is animals. I actually think about animals every day when I wake up. I look at the weather. Is it hot? Is it cold? Do they have shelter? Is there a fire? Floods. So all of those things, plus all the exposés that I watch from Farm Transparency Project. So I keep them in my mind all the time, and they drive me forward, and they will push me. I'm actually an introvert by nature, and that is what has been, it's pushing me all the time to just get out there, because the animals have it so much worse than me, thinking that I'm not able to be the best I can be when I'm speaking with people. But I have a lot of guilt as well. I was an older person to become vegan before my brain switched on and I realised what I was contributing to. But when I realised, I did my research. I think I took about 6 months just to have a look at whatever I could find. I learnt how to be a healthy vegan. I learnt about all the different things that were happening to the animals, and I've used all of that to propel me forward. I also think about Philip Wallen and the word term sentience. I didn't even know what the word sentience meant. I had to look it up. And he also said, it's great that you're vegan, but you also need to be an active vegan. And that struck a chord in my brain. I kept it at the back. I thought, well, how am I going to be an active vegan? I don't know how to do that. But you soon do learn when you're in the community. You can see how to be an active vegan. I think about environmentalist Bob Brown as well. He said, don't just sit back and be sad and depressed about it. Get out and do something. And there's so many things that we can be doing. And we're lucky in Sydney, we have so many things that we can participate in. But as Molly said, if you have nothing nearby, you can turn to social media or cooking or whatever it may be. But the biggest one for me is my tribe, the other activists. I mean, it's like, you go to fill your car up with petrol. You have to do that every week, just about. But every week I go to Activism, and that fills me up with the most positive energy and a lot of hope. And it's because of other activists. Other vegans are great, but the activists, next level. They are the ones that make my life, because I just need them every week. Initially, that's what I ran on when I first became an activist, but now it's not just that. It's also the animals and everything, but it was being with like-minded people. You're never isolated, and you're a part of something really big. In regard to avoiding burnout, well, I've just said that, absorb their positive energy from other activists. Do the usual things, learn to meditate. I do meditate on the bus before I get into the city, so I'm in a good frame of mind to meet all those, I shouldn't call them zombies, but no, I won't call them zombies. No, I'm just saying, I'm just being
Future
honest, but I
vegans.
don't treat people that way, of course. But I'm thinking, all right, you know, do my meditation, so I'm in the right frame of mind. And also, don't overcommit. That is a really big thing, and especially when you're trying to work out what type of activism you like the best, it's easy to try all sorts, and you get involved in all sorts. Even if you're doing a little bit here and a little bit there, you can become overcommitted very quickly. So find what your true nature is and what activism suits you the best. And focus on the wins. There are a number of wins. Sentience, for example, is starting, I mean, it might be a bit tokenistic now in the ACT, but that is a win. The word sentience is actually legal, you know, in legal terms, they're using it. And animal free science now, there are so many good things happening, particularly in the United States, in the UK, and hopefully Australia will follow very soon. So focus on all the good things too. Thanks.
Mark, any thoughts about burnout?
Right, okay, this is a simple one for me because I just simply divided my life up into segments, right? I'm an activist at one part, but also a musician, which I'm lucky to be. I play a viola in orchestras and chamber music and also sing. And I get myself involved in local theatre, not as an actor because I can't afford the time, but I'm doing biobox stuff at the moment. So when I go into activism, I just sort of switch that button, change the hat, get on with it. I treat it like a job, basically. But in a way, when I'm in the pit street looking down the streets, I exercise my long-term vision rather than looking at small screens all the time and able to meditate too and try to get myself in a bit of a trance-like state, just being there in the moment. And after I've been there, you think, oh, I stand my feet. But at the end of the day, I just feel like you've been to some sort of religious rite. You know, I know we get called a cult and a religious cult, etc. Now we, Bible bashers or what. It's a bit beyond, obviously it's more complicated than that. But I just have that great feeling at the end of the day. So I've subdivided it. I make sure that I'm doing something I really enjoy that's got nothing to do with anything else. If I go to the orchestras and something and I see them with their milk and talk and what have you, I've even went to a Christmas party once and they said, oh, does everyone want rump steak or something like that? And I thought, well, yes. I was the only one not eating the bloody stuff, literally. And but I had to hold it back. But when I'm doing that, we're not all sitting around eating meals, we're actually playing music. So I let that music run through me. And when I'm singing, it's very great listen. I encourage anyone to join a choir, particularly men, because it's really a fantastic way of releasing emotion, and singing with others is a joyous experience, and that's across the board, and that's really absolute freedom. So it's that division and recognising what I'm doing for what I'm doing and what hat I'm wearing at the time. But you must give yourself that downtime. So treat it like a job. You'll be much more effective. If you get involved emotionally, it's just wasted time. It really is. Be tough. Get out there. I'm insensitive, but I'm shy as well. I had to overcome that. And best thing you can do.
You heard it, guys. Be tough. Right, Molly?
I read an article once that in 2008, tens of millions of Americans watched with horror and disbelief when they saw on their evening news an undercover video of cattle, too sick to walk, being kicked, shocked with electric pods, jabbed in the eye with a baton, and pushed around with a forklift, all that they could be driven near enough to the kill box to be slaughtered and processed into meat. The video was taken at the Westland Hallmark Slaughterhouse in California, just 30 miles from the heart of Los Angeles. After pleading guilty to charges of animal cruelty, Daniel Navarro, the pen manager, said, by giving sick cows electric shocks in the face, beating them, and using a forklift to move them, he had done nothing wrong and was just doing his job. The incident happened that day, happens to billions of animals every day. It's not an exception, it's a routine reality. And if this is not genocide, I don't know what is. And I believe this knowledge alone was enough to steal my peace for a lifetime and make me an activist. What drives me in my activism is rage, grief, and an unbearable sense of injustice. If activism has truly touched you, it will not leave you in peace. It will follow you into your homes, your workplace, your dreams. It will demand sacrifice, it will demand risk, and sometimes it will demand everything. What drives me is the truth that some battles are worth fighting until death. Because activism is not what you do, it is who you become. So if you're asking me how I sustain as a long-term activist, I would say I did not sustain activism, activism sustained me. And how I avoid burnout is, of course, being with the community. What I believe, burnout, it thrives in isolation. The system, it wants us tired, alone, carrying pain in silence. But when we come together, when we stand shoulder to shoulder with other activists, the weight becomes shared and the struggle becomes lighter. The community does what no individual strength can do, it absorbs the blow. So yes, being part of the community helps immensely in dealing with burnout and supporting mental health. Apart from that, I am a vegan content creator on social media, and this is often daunting because the work does not end with creating content. It comes with constant exposure to negative comments, ridicule, and hostility. On top of that, the process of editing footage, revisiting intense visuals and arguments can itself be emotionally and mentally quite challenging. So to protect my well-being, I choose to keep myself away regularly from social media, at least 3 to 4 times a week. And so yeah, this distance is intentional. It allows my mind to rest, my emotions to settle, and my purpose to remain intact. Thank you.
That was wonderful, Molly. Thank you. As we come to an end, honestly, there's so much to explore in the world of street activism. We could be here for hours and hours. We knew 1 hour was going to be tough, but just tried to cover, all the most important points. Hopefully, it's having some sort of impact, and it has been informative. And yeah, just dealing with burnout, it's so important just to take breaks if you need to, replenish and come back fresh. As I feel activists have put it, just got to keep that fire of passion burning, It's a flame that never dies, and at the same time, you've got to make sure that your health is also a priority, because unless we're fit, we can't do our part for the movement.
So you need to be vegan.
Isn't?
Yeah.
And as I touched on before, there was a beautiful discussion circle run by Claire Mann yesterday about managing activist conflicts. And no matter what happens, there's a lot going on in the world all the time. There are human rights violations, obviously the long-standing battle against animal rights, probably the most oppressed class of beings, throughout history. And it doesn't have to be mutually exclusive. You can always speak up for multiple issues at a time. And regardless of how people within our community feel, it's so important to keep a clear line of communication, to really understand, to have a balance of, emotional thinking, healthy emotional expression, and also having that strong rational mindset as well. I think that brings out the best in us. And keeping clear communication, building rapport, it's going to be so key to staying strong as a community, because the animals need nothing less than all of us together at our very best. And as anthropologist Margaret Mead once said, you guys would have likely heard of this quote, "Never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed individuals can change the world. Indeed, it's the only thing that ever has." So thank you all so much for listening. Thank you to our beautiful activists. And we'd like to open the floor up for any questions you guys might have. Have you got 5 minutes? How long have you got?
Okay, we've got only about 5 minutes left, so we can only have a few questions, not too many. And please keep the questions short.
I just want to know what the book was that you suggested that we read, Mark.
It was Never Split the Difference. Right? Yes, not probably knows. Never Split the Difference. Yeah, I highly recommend Berriman funding.
Okay, other questions?
I'd just like to ask some of the long-term street outreach activists, how do you see the change that's come about in recent years compared to what I'll call the pre-COVID years in 2016, 17, 18, 19, when we're doing outreach, the conversations were easier, in my belief. Would they be easier now or more difficult? And also, how would you best deal with the KFC boys, so to speak?
Thank you, Patrick. Yes, I do agree. It was a lot different back then. I do find conversations now harder, even though people are more, I would say, they have a lot more understanding of veganism as opposed to 10 years ago. Before, there was a lot more curiosity. People would stop hey, what's going on? What's up with those masks, the screen? Now, people know what veganism is. At least they have this very vague understanding. Most kids at school have vegan friends, at least one. So it's, has become a, part of the fabric in society. But also that came, this change came with this very negative feedback we've been getting. There was a lot more mockery, a lot of pushback, KFC boys, just another topic. But we can, yeah. But, we're doing our best. In terms of the methods, nothing has changed. We're still doing it every Saturday, speak the truth, getting out there, getting the message across, doing our best, and yeah.
Okay, we have time for one more.
Okay. Hi, my name is Greg from Brisbane. Just one thing, I've been working with Susan on this. It's really important to normalise veganism as humanly possible. And what Susan's been helping with the Vegan Action Sydney page is the asking people what's your name, and importantly, what's your career, why you're vegan and why you're a vegan animal rights activist. Because if we normalise being vegan, it dispels the idea that people are saying, vegans go get a job, this type of thing. When some of us were engineers, we're doctors, we're nurses, myself, I'm an insurance investigator. So the idea is just to normalise it. And the only other thing I just noticed in terms of protecting is to ask people why they would go vegan. If they're looking at the footage, to say, I know you might not be vegan, but if you were to do it, why would you do it? And that's when they actually sell veganism to us. That's one of the things I noticed. Have you noticed anything like that when you're talking to people?
Yeah, when they sell it to themselves. And I think that's the other thing, very briefly. You have to have, a selection of questions that you have in your mind so that you can bring people to where you want them to say, when you ask, well, what can you and I do about this? And they will say, we need to stop eating meat, or we need to stop eating animals. And that's where you can jump from there. But I think We the Free, I use a combination of questions from We the Free and also Anonymous for the Voiceless. I just find that they are really good ones to have in the back of your mind because you will never feel that you're going to be running out of anything to say, especially if you have some people just staring and they don't know, they don't have anything to say. Yeah. But I think, thank you very much to Vegan Action Global, Brisbane, Sydney and Melbourne, and I think it's in Kent. But I think it's a really great campaign to show ordinary people doing extraordinary things. That's what it's about. And changing the perception that the media has portrayed, that society has portrayed of what or who a vegan is, that we are great people to speak with, because I think that can be something that is a barrier. Anyway, I'm finished, sorry.
And that's all, folks. Thank you so much for joining us today. We could go on for hours, but hopefully we'll have more panels in the future. Thank you all. Yeah.